Hello people, YouTubers. It's Wednesday the 30th of March 2011 and seems how the Cardiff County Council wouldn't let me read my public question out at the 24th, last Thursday's meeting. I'm going to read it out here and put it on YouTube. And you have to ask yourself things like, when's the criminal negligence and discrimination towards Crazydave going to end, Chief Constable Peter Vaughan? You have to ask yourself, was this just another symptom of that negligence and discrimination by his email not being responded to by the CEO of Cardiff County Council, who had a number of letters from me pointing out different things and saying, well, excuse me, how come you're not responding to my emails? Because there's stuff I've been sending there about money saving ideas for the Cardiff County Council that would mean that maybe they weren't cutting back on so many services. One of them is switching off street lighting. But anyway, this is about housing issues and Cardiff County Council returning lots of money back to Whitehall in rent monies. This is a question I wanted to ask. It is my belief that this council fails in its duty of care to its tenants and the people of the city by not recommending that its council tenancies be transferred to housing association ownership, given that over the last 10 years it has returned £139 million in rent monies back to Whitehall. Given that the above inflation rent rise of 2011-2012 is 5.61%, can the leader of the council tell us what the expected figure for 2011-2012 will be in returned rents to Whitehall? I would like to take this opportunity to ask this council to vote to recommend such a transfer of ownership for the nominal sum of £1 take place, and that in drawing up the documents during the transfer, all tenants are given a share in the ownership of the housing association, their equal voting rights as any executive member who deal in the day-to-day running. In any other business, this practice of returning rent monies would be viewed as price fixing, where higher than necessary rents are the result. It is unfortunate for me that South Wales Police failed to acknowledge this, and no doubt would Cardiff County Council's run Trading Standards Office. Such a transfer would mean a growth over time in the availability of more social housing at current rent levels, because all monies would remain in the accounts. One can only wonder at the motivation of unelected officials of this council not recommending such a change years ago to the elected members. Now, I need somebody to propose that, what they call a motion, and I need somebody to second it in order for the council to vote on the issue. And I wonder if the people of Cardiff will turn around and say, well, excuse me, we're demanding a transfer, because it is price fixing, that if these tenancies of the council, substandard though they are, the one that I'm living in, were owned by a housing association, there would be no need for this 5.6% rent rise. And you have to ask yourself that, well, so far the minimum that Cardiff County Council has received out of housing benefit for housing me in this property for the last 10 years has been £30,000. That's the minimum, given a £52 a week rent. It's now £70 odd a week in rents, and so that's going to go up. And it's going to go up every year, because they're returning these rent monies. And you have to ask yourself, well, excuse me, shouldn't rents to tenants be declining over the years that they're a tenant of a social housing provider? This property must have been paid for over and over again. Now, do you think that I've had 30 grand's worth of care in this property? I really don't think so, Carwyn Jones. I really don't think so, Mr. David Cameron, Mr. Clegg, Mr. Miliband. I really don't think I've had 30 grand's worth of care and attention for the monies they're getting. I really don't. And I really think that you should be looking at a situation where, excuse me, rents decrease over time there are tenants in a property, until it becomes just a nominal figure of something like £5 to £10, maybe £15 per week, after 10, 15 or 20 years as a tenant. And wouldn't that make people realise that maybe social housing is a better option than owning a property? I know that you can borrow money on owning a property, but hello? What's that based around? Bricks and mortar, for crying out loud? You've got to be in a job to be able to provide the revenue for that. So if you're in a job with a certain income, shouldn't we be able to borrow excess on that, rather than just because you've got bricks and mortar? And I think in this country we really ought to have a rethink about, is the grip of death or mortgage really a good thing? And perhaps we ought to have a look at the way our banks lend money, because it was all a crock of shit anyway, wasn't it? That proved that with a crash. So there we go. I got to worry about the time on the length of this video, but is somebody going to ask that question on my behalf? The BBC won't. The BBC's pretending that this public question does not exist, that somebody was stopped from asking this public question because a certain Kate Berry, who has resigned from the council, put a block on my email. And that's, if not breaking the spirit of Human Rights Act legislation, it's actually breaking the law on it. And yet South Wales Police, paymastered by Cardiff County Council, doesn't want to investigate that on my behalf. And isn't that discrimination by them? IPCC, Equality Human Rights Commission people? Not that they all want to wash their hands. I mean, you got to wonder why that is, people. You really got to wonder why they would be willing to do that. And I sure would like a barrister to take the lot of the suckers to court, but that's me, and I think I ought to have that right. But being, impoverished doesn't allow me to buy one. But here we go. I hope that's food for thought for all you people, while you get all bullshitted by Jason Mohammed and his BBC Radio Wales afternoon phone-in show, because as a journalist, that's questionable. A stooge for the corporation, probably. Told not to deal with this issue, undoubtedly. Journalism, it sucks in Wales, it really does. But there we go, that's another issue. Got to get this off. Social housing, people, is the way forward. They got this thing now they're called in the land development plan. The land development plan for whole of South Wales, because Cardiff can't take on a 42% increase in population, which the Welsh Assembly are predicted by 2033. So how about us having an Eden project for the whole of South Wales and call it the Village City? That would be nice. There we go. Ta-ra.